Have you ever known someone who's always talking about their next big thing? Their grand plans, their revolutionary ideas, their dreams of changing the world. We all have. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes that person is us. Today, I want to tell you a story about a guy just like that. His name is Daniel. Daniel was the king of grand announcements. At every party, every family gathering, every coffee break at work, he would hold court. One month, he was going to launch a revolutionary new app that would organize your life. He described the user interface in vivid detail, the seamless integration, the way it would make everyone's day more productive. His friends and family would listen, nodding along, impressed by his vision. He'd say, "Just you wait. This time next year, we'll all be using it." But a year would pass, and the app was still just a collection of sketches in a notebook. Then it was a podcast. "It's going to be huge," he'd declare. "I'll interview the most fascinating people. We'll dive deep into philosophy, technology, you name it." He bought a fancy microphone, set up a website, and even recorded a catchy intro jingle. He talked about it so much that his friends felt like they had already listened to the first 10 episodes. But those episodes never materialized. The microphone gathered dust, and the website domain expired. His most ambitious project was a sustainable, eco-friendly coffee shop. He had the name picked out, Earthly Brews. He spent months researching fair trade beans, designing a logo, and scouting locations. He'd pull out his phone and show everyone pictures of rustic interiors and artisanal pastries. "This isn't just a coffee shop," he'd explain with passion in his eyes. "It's a community hub, a movement." People were genuinely excited for him. They offered to help, to invest, to be his first customers. But the grand opening never came. The financial projections were too daunting, the permits too complicated, the reality of running a business far more challenging than the dream. With each failed project, a little piece of Daniel's credibility chipped away. The enthusiastic nods from his friends became polite smiles. The questions about his projects became less frequent. People started to change the subject when he'd begin one of his grand speeches. Daniel felt it. He felt the shift from admiration to skepticism, and then to pity. It was a heavy weight. He wasn't just failing at his projects. He was failing in front of an audience he had created for himself. The shame was worse than the failure itself. He started to avoid social gatherings, his vibrant energy replaced by a quiet, defeated air. He felt like a joke, a cautionary tale. The man with the $1 million dreams and the $10 follow-through. One afternoon, feeling particularly low, Daniel was scrolling through social media when he stumbled upon an article about Robert Lee. Robert was an old acquaintance from college, a quiet, unassuming guy who was rarely the center of attention. The article was about his new tech company, a startup that had just secured millions in funding and was being hailed as the next big disruptor in its field. Daniel was stunned. He remembered Robert as the guy who sat in the back of the lecture hall, always listening, rarely speaking. He never talked about his ambitions or his grand plans. Curiosity got the better of Daniel. He found Robert's contact information and, after some hesitation, sent him a message, congratulating him on his success and tentatively asking if he'd be open to grabbing a coffee. To his surprise, Robert replied almost immediately, a simple, "Sure, how's Tuesday?" They met at a small, no-frills cafe. Robert was just as Daniel remembered him: calm, observant, and a great listener. Daniel, out of habit, started to talk about his own string of almosts: the app, the podcast, the coffee shop. He found himself complaining about his bad luck, the obstacles, the lack of support. Robert listened patiently, sipping his black coffee. When Daniel finally ran out of steam, Robert didn't offer sympathy or platitudes. He just looked at Daniel and said something that would change everything. "Daniel," he began, his voice even and calm, "you're building a theater, but you're forgetting to write the play. Erase spending all your energy selling tickets to a show that doesn't exist yet." The words hit Daniel like a ton of bricks. A theater without a play. That was it. That was his entire life. Robert continued, "When you announce your goals to the world, you get a little hit of social validation. It feels good, right? People are impressed. They praise you. Your brain gets a taste of the reward before you've even done the work. It tricks you into feeling like you've already achieved something." He leaned forward slightly. "So you get the applause, the satisfaction, without the sweat. It kills your motivation to do the actual, hard, boring work that's required to make it happen. You fell in love with the idea of being a successful entrepreneur, but not with the process of becoming one." Daniel was silent. Everything Robert said was painfully true. He had been addicted to the applause, to the validation of his ideas, not the execution. "So what did you do?" Daniel asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I went quiet," Robert said. "I had an idea for my company, and instead of telling everyone, I told myself I wasn't allowed to talk about it. Not to friends, not to family, no one. My goal wasn't to launch a company. My first goal was to write a single line of code, then another, then build a crappy, barely functional prototype. My world became very small. It was just me and the work. I broke down the giant, scary dream into tiny, manageable, and frankly, boring steps." He explained his philosophy: move in silence. Let the results make the noise. He treated his dream not as a public performance, but as a secret mission. The energy he would have spent on crafting announcements and managing expectations, he channeled directly into the project itself. He celebrated the small, private victories: fixing a bug, finishing a business plan draft, making his first sale. The only person he needed to impress was himself. The silence, Robert concluded, creates a vacuum, a kind of productive pressure. Since you're not getting external validation, the only way to feel a sense of progress is to actually make progress. You have to build the thing to scratch the itch. Let your success be the surprise party, not the invitation you send out months in advance. Daniel left that coffee shop a different person. Robert's words echoed in his mind. Move in silence. Let the results make the noise. He went home and deleted all the old, ambitious posts from his social media. He archived the design files for the coffee shop and the audio files for the podcast. It was a symbolic funeral for his old self, the talker. He thought about what he truly wanted to do. The app idea still sparked something in him, but this time he approached it differently. He didn't tell a soul. His new goal wasn't to launch a revolutionary app. His goal for that week was simply to complete an online course on the programming language he needed. That was it. A small, boring, achievable step. The next week, his goal was to design one screen of the user interface. The week after, to make one button functional. He worked late into the nights, not for an audience, but for himself. There was no fanfare, no grand declarations. His friends and family just noticed he was a bit quieter, more focused. When they asked what he was up to, he'd just smile and say, "Oh, just working on a little project." Months turned into a year. The work was slow, often frustrating. There were countless times he wanted to quit. But without the public pressure, the stakes felt different. Failure was a private lesson, not a public humiliation. He could pivot, make mistakes, and learn without an audience critiquing his every move. One day, about 18 months after his coffee with Robert, a few of his closest friends received a message from Daniel. It wasn't a grand announcement. It was a simple link with the message, "Hey, I made this. Let me know what you think." They clicked the link. It was his app. It was real. It was functional, sleek, and genuinely useful. It wasn't a sketch or a dream. It was a finished product. They were blown away. The surprise and genuine admiration were 1,000 times more satisfying than the polite, preemptive applause he used to chase. The app, born in silence, started to make noise. His friends told their friends. It got picked up by a small tech blog, then a larger one. Daniel's success wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, steady burn that grew brighter and brighter. He never held a press conference or made a big deal of it. He just kept his head down, focusing on the next update, the next feature, the next step. The story of Daniel and Robert isn't just about business or startups. It's a lesson about the psychology of achievement. Talking about our goals can be a trap. It can satisfy our ego in the short term, but sabotage our drive in the long term. So, what's your secret project? What's the dream you're willing to work on in silence? Maybe it's time to stop building the theater and start writing the play. Take that big, audacious goal and break it down into the smallest, most boring step you can take today. And then, don't tell anyone. Just do it. Let your results be the big reveal. Let your success make all the noise. Thanks so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. See you in the next one.